Hello there. My name is Jack Veltri. I am the South Carolina baseball beat writer for GamecockCentral.com. And in this video, I'll be sharing an exclusive interview that I did with new South Carolina pitching coach slash recruiting coordinator Terry Rooney. And before we get started, I just want to say a big thank you to all of our subscribers, GC members, and anyone who's followed along with the South Carolina baseball coaching search over the last week. It's been a real grind. A lot of different names have been out there, but ultimately South Carolina settled on Paul Manieri as the next head coach. Like I said, Rooney as pitching coach, recruiting coordinator, Monty Lee as an associate head coach and hitting coach, and then John Hendry as an assistant coach. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Hope you all enjoy. First off, Terry, welcome in and welcome to Columbia.
Thank you so much for having me. Couldn't be more excited to get up there soon, and it's an honor to be a part of one of the best programs in college baseball.
Yeah, so I'll kind of cut into the chase here. How did this all kind of come up? Like, can you just run us through, like, did you get a call from Coach Manieri about this, or kind of explain how this all came about?
Yeah, certainly very quick from my end, extremely quick. This was I actually had just gotten to LSU, this past summer for the second time. It was my second stint at LSU, and my first time here was with Coach Manieri in 2007, 2008. I was also his pitching coach, recruiting coordinator then. So obviously we have a long-standing relationship. Coach and I was with him for 3 years at Notre Dame, also as pitching coach, recruiting coordinator. He took the job at LSU and came with him. So obviously we have a personal and professional relationship that we've maintained for a long, long time. And I will tell you, as I've told so many people, I am proud to call Coach Manieri my mentor. I wouldn't be where I am without him. Many of the opportunities that I've had and learned so much, and certainly everybody at the University of South Carolina is going to see what I know if they don't already, just how great he's going to do for them. And so I say that because the position, we talk often, Coach and I, but he literally told me about it, just a few days ago. I mean, literally just a few days ago, that it could be a possibility for him. And then once it became a possibility for him, we discussed obviously the details of it, and it happened very, very quick. But very excited, certainly to come to South Carolina, one, and two, the chance to work again for Coach Manieri and this incredible staff he's put together, with Monty and John Hendry.
Yeah, so you say you got a call from Coach Manieri the other day. Obviously, he's been out of the game of baseball for a few years. He's had other opportunities potentially in the past at other schools that had job openings. And I was reading a story when one of the writers had spoken to him, and he said that he would have brought you along wherever he would have gone. In this case, when he called you about the opportunity at South Carolina, was it something like you knew immediately, like, I'm going to go follow this guy there?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. And it's about, as we say in everything in life, it's about the people, right? And knowing that it's about the people, that was certainly a big part of this. I will say though, I certainly, I did love being back at LSU. It was my second time here, and I was very familiar with it, and was very, fortunate to work for Coach Johnson, and the success that he's had. So I certainly enjoyed that experience. However, the opportunity to be the recruiting coordinator again, to be the pitching coach, to stay in the SEC, which is, as we all know, the best league in the country. It certainly met all of the boxes, so to speak, that if I were to ever leave LSU, this was certainly a place and somebody that I would do it with. So I certainly a combination of many variables, but staying in the SEC, but staying at South Carolina and with Coach Manieri, and again, with this incredible staff that he was in the process of putting together, was really exciting and intriguing to me.
What do you feel like this opportunity is going to be like for you? Do you feel like it's a new challenge, so to say? Like, you're still in the SEC, but you're at a school where obviously South Carolina hasn't been to Omaha since 2012, and the goal is to get back there. How do you kind of go into this whole new situation here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a couple things. It's actually for myself personally, the third SE school I worked at, I was also worked at Alabama for a year. So I've had a chance, to see a little bit of the landscape, at different schools in our league. Having been at LSU, having been at Alabama, I've seen, I think, a wide variety, so to speak, of what it is. And I do look at it certainly as a new challenge. I think how you coach players, how you treat them is all the same. It doesn't matter where you are. And I think that for me, the biggest thing for players, whether you're recruiting them or while they're there, as I say, it's about two things in dealing with kids. It's about development and winning. Those are the two things that all the best players in the country want, and the players that are at our school. They want to go to a place they're going to develop and a place they're going to win. And they're going to do that at South Carolina. And certainly they've done it. An incredible tradition. Everybody knows that, what Coach Tanner has built there. But my point being is that, they're going to, every player in our program is going to be in position to develop. And if it's their aspirations and goals to play Major League Baseball, we're going to do everything we can to put them in that position. And then two, obviously collectively, as a team, it's to get back to Omaha and win another national championship. And I feel like we have everything in place to do that.
What was kind of the selling point during these conversations with Coach Tanner or Coach Manieri that kind of led you to like, okay, like I'm down to do this. I'm down to come to South Carolina.
Well, I think there is a couple of things. I think certainly just knowing the history, the commitment, everything that is there at South Carolina, and obviously that's led by Coach Tanner. One of the greatest coaches in the history of college baseball, now leading athletic department. He certainly knows what it looks like. He knows what it's like in the day to day, and is going to give us the resources, and he certainly has in the past. But continue to make sure that the resources are there for us to do everything we can for our players. Because like Coach Manieri said, and has said before, it's all about the players. It's not about us, it's about them. Every single day I'm going to wake up and do what I can to help South Carolina win a national championship. Like, that's just how I roll. Every morning the caffeine is going to be rocking, okay? It's going to be on high octane, and I'm going to wake up every single morning doing what I can in my part to help this program win another national championship. Obviously with everybody doing it all together. So there wasn't one specific thing. It was actually a lot of different parts that allowed me to make this decision. And even from a personal standpoint, my wife and daughter, for us to leave Baton Rouge, we would want to, if we were to ever leave, which we are, want to be in another, SEC college town from that end. So for my daughter to continue to have an opportunity to grow up around collegiate athletics is huge.
So in terms of recruiting, because that's obviously going to be a big part of your job, from your time working with Coach Manieri, how much of a like a split up kind of team effort is recruiting? Like, how much do you feel like you do recruiting wise compared to him? And will it kind of be the same sort of formula at South Carolina?
I think recruiting is evolving, as we all know, and certainly it's a collective effort. It's everybody. It's not just myself. It's myself, and it's Monty, and it's Coach Manieri, and it's John Hendry, and it's our strength coach, and it's everybody. I really, that's something for me that in recruiting, particularly in today's landscape, it does take everybody. And I think in recruiting, that's what it takes. Everybody can pick up a phone and talk to somebody about how great their program is and look at our facilities. And when we're in the SEC, well, that's wonderful, because a lot of places have good facilities and good history, certainly not to the magnitude of South Carolina. But in recruiting, you have to decide what's going to be the difference. What's going to be the difference that they're going to come. And South Carolina has so many of those variables. Point being is that it takes everybody. Every single person in this program is going to assist in recruiting players, like everybody. Yes, certainly, where people have their own designated areas in which to focus on, but it takes everybody in my efforts and my belief to recruit. As we all know, you're dealing with high school kids, you're dealing with a portal, you're dealing with a variety of things that have to go almost 24 hours a day, so to speak. So it takes everybody in the program to be successful.
What does a Terry Rooney recruiting pitch usually look like when you're trying to get the best of the best to come to the school you're working at?
Well, I'll tell you this. First of all, we're going to go for the best of the best. That's a fact, And I do feel like I said it before, but I do feel like I know what the best players in the country want. I truly believe that. I feel like the best players in the country want to go somewhere they're going to develop into a major league player, and somewhere they're going to have a chance to go to Omaha and win a national championship. All of the best players in America want that, whether they're a high school kid, a junior college transfer, or a 4-year transfer. Those are the two variables that the best players in America want. And obviously, those are two factors that can distinguish us from others. That, and I say a lot of times, making sure people understand this is about relationships. It's not about recruiting quantity, it's about recruiting quality. And the relationships that this coaching staff, Coach Lee, has already had, which is obviously evident in the players that are in the program and their love for him so much, that's certainly going to continue. So obviously, I'm going to continue to lean on Monty. He's absolutely one of the best coaches, recruiters in all of college baseball. We're going to continue to do this together. And he's a big reason I'm coming too, because of the respect that I have for him.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Monty because obviously before you got here, when he was at South Carolina last year and the year before, he served as the recruiting coordinator. So I ask, when you're coming here, first off, did you like have any like prior knowledge or interaction with Monty before this year?
You know what? We limited, I think, on an individual basis, but large on in the competition standpoint, the recruiting standpoint. We're very similar age. We actually in some ways have, I guess you could say, similar type backgrounds. In essence, we've both been assistant coaches in the SEC. We've both been prior head coaches. Obviously, his two stops at Clemson and Charleston. I was the head coach at UCF. So we have a lot of similarities, to be quite honest, in our backgrounds. But we didn't have we be honest, we didn't have a very close personal relationship, just kind of a little bit different circles, so to speak. You know what I mean? But I can tell you this: the respect from afar, was enormous. And we got on the call as soon as we both signed our contracts yesterday, and have kind of been a nonstop text message, phone call here throughout.
So I guess my follow-up question to that is, you're coming to a new school, you're meeting new faces, new coaches and stuff outside of Coach Maneri. With Monty specifically, how does that relationship kind of form quickly, and how do you kind of work together as a team in terms of recruiting?
Well, the one thing I think that is great is, and it is a team effort. Again, I can't say it enough. I mean, it is a collective team effort to get the best players in the country to come to South Carolina. And I think it's just knowing that, listen, it doesn't. Even he and I think I brought it up regarding our past responsibilities and where we've been. There's no egos in this. There's no individualism. I can tell you that. We both know that. It's one of the reasons I know so much people love Coach Lee and love Monty. Is just listen. It's all the bottom line is, let's get this thing back to Omaha and win another national championship. Doesn't matter who gets the credit for it. Doesn't matter who is happening. Everything we do is about the players. And that's something everybody in South Carolina will learn about Coach Maneri. Every single decision that coach will make regarding the South Carolina baseball program is about the players. What do we have to do to put our kids in the best position to be successful? That's it. And it's the same thing in recruiting. What do we have to do that? And I will say I feel extremely confident that I have the ability to assist in getting the best players in the country here. And again, kind of knowing what they want and what it takes.
Wanted to dive a little bit into your relationship with Coach Maneri, and obviously he's been out of the game for the last 3 years, but he's always had the itch to come back. People out there are going to say, oh, he's 66 years old. By the time he coaches his first game on opening day next year, he'll be 67 years old. And with the way kind of things have changed with NIL and the transfer portal and recruiting, it's a different ballgame than it was back in 2021. From your standpoint, as someone that's known him well over, forever now, it feels like, what makes you feel like Coach Maneri can just get right back into this game and have success?
I mean, I think you said it earlier. I mean, he's refreshed and ready to go. And I don't want to speak for him, but he when he left LSU, it was on his own terms. He had a couple years left on his contract, and he just felt like, kind of from a health standpoint, some things with his neck, not that he can describe more in depth if he chooses to. But I think it was just a few things regarding that is the only reason he got out. But I knew he always wanted to get back in. He felt like he had some unfinished business, so to speak. And his whole thing is he wants to help players. That's his drive. That's been his big, I'm sure, outside of his family, his motivation in life professionally is to help kids and help them get. And he knew the same thing as I alluded to, that every resource and support that we need in order to do that is at South Carolina, led by Coach Tanner. So there's absolutely no doubt that Coach is ready to go. And again, yes, he's been out for a few years, but he's got a staff that hasn't, and I can tell you that, with Don and Monty and all of us, like, we have a tremendous understanding of the landscape of college baseball recruiting and what's going on. And I can assure Gamecock fans, like, we'll be in position to roll.
Was that kind of the vibe you got from Coach Maneri when you were talking to him about this whole process and decision? Was that like, hey, I'm ready to go?
Yeah, no, he was. I mean, I could tell. And again, I communicate him. I mean, obviously, living in Baton Rouge, him living in Baton Rouge, we had, we talk occasionally. We actually didn't talk as probably as much as people think. During the years, everybody's busy, but we would certainly stay in touch. And even in the last 2 years when he retired, I knew it was going to happen. And, he had told me about some other potential possibilities that he might have had, or, others had expressed interest in him since he had retired. And so I knew about that. But I just know him. And I really feel like I know what motivates him. And I think you've got somebody that cares about players, cares about doing things the right way, and as competitive as anybody I've been around. I will tell you that the competitiveness of Paul Mainieri is an aspect that everybody's going to continue to see. I know Gamecock fans saw it when he was at LSU, but he is one of the best baseball minds ever been. I mean, he is. I heard today, he's the winningest, most active, winningest coach in Division I baseball right now. I mean, if you're a fan of college baseball, you're a Gamecock fan. Just let that sink in. There's not a more winning coach in college baseball right now than Paul Mainieri, and he's leading the Gamecocks. So there it is, and I know Coach Tanner, there's certainly a lot of variables that went into it, but to be able to hire the winningest coach in college baseball who's won a national championship, who has done what every Gamecock fan wants, it doesn't get any better. And obviously, he's hired a staff that's up to date, so to speak, and all of the variables that have changed in recruiting. And I simply say that because recruiting is changing every couple months on the things you can do, the things you can't do, and obviously the transfer portal is nonstop.
I have to be honest, I'm really impressed with your track record and resume and what you've been able to do over your career. What really stands out to me is the fact that you've been able to send 20 pitchers to be drafted within the first 10 rounds of the MLB draft over the years. From your standpoint, what does a Terry Rooney pitching philosophy kind of look like?
Well, obviously that's a big question, but I can tell you this, it's really just in a very, kind of basic term is that, we're going to be a relentless strike throwing pitching staff, who exudes poise and confidence and embraces pitching in the clutch. There's certainly many variables to that when you're breaking down pitching, when you're talking about how the body moves, what the ball does, and then, the art of pitching, so to speak. But what I want when people walk away from playing us, no matter the outcome, win or lose, I want them to walk away from us saying, "My goodness, man, those guys attack the zone. They come right at you, and they exude tremendous poise and confidence." Because I feel like I know that I know that we have great pitchers in our program. I know we're going to continue to get great pitchers in our program. So they'll be put in situations to be successful. Now it's my job to identify what their strengths are, make sure we put them in those, make sure we maintain those strengths, put them in the best spots. But they're going to go out there on the base level, throw strikes and exude confidence in the biggest moments in the game. And that's probably something where, for sure, I'm very fortunate. We've had a lot of guys who have been good draft picks, but I'm really proud of the fact that I feel like we've had a bunch of pitching stats collectively that throw strikes, attack the zone, and know how to do it in the clutch.
So have you gotten, like, I know it's kind of all fresh and new, but have you reached out to any of the pitchers on staff currently right now, or vice versa? And even if not, or if so, what's kind of the first steps for you when you're working with the pitchers when you get to Columbia?
Well, first of all, yeah, there's been a few text messages here and there. That's one of the things, I can tell you is priority, right at the top of my list when we get there tomorrow to Columbia is we're actually in the upcoming dead period, NCAA wise, so we're not able to go on the road for a few days over the weekend, which really probably works out great for a guy coming on a new job. So I'm going to take that weekend especially to finish up making sure I talk to all of the current pitchers in the program. And listen, it doesn't matter that I didn't recruit them and I haven't coached them. I mean, those guys are my guys, pitchers, and the players are our players, and we're going to treat them every single day with the most respect and give them everything we can. And that's what I told him earlier. I said, listen, I promise you, I'll give you everything I got every single day, and we're going to do collectively. We're going to do it together. This has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with the players. So we would definitely have those and the relationships are what matters to me most. You can't coach kids if you don't have great relationships with them. Doesn't mean they're always going to agree with you, but you got to have great relationships with the kids. They have to know you have your best interests, and that's the first thing I'm going to tell guys. Our guys that are on the staff that are returners say, listen, I love you guys. I haven't coached you yet. I can't wait to coach you. But when we get here in the fall, we're going to be a championship level pitching staff. We're going to figure it out. And I think the biggest thing for me is two things, really. Number one is to make sure that I build the relationships with these kids as quickly as I can, number one. And number two is to kind of evaluate a little bit, what do we have? What do they do well? And make sure I can kind of start before we start practice is just get a little bit of a general idea of what they are, so to speak.
How do you kind of deal with the process of, because obviously you're coming into a new situation, you're going to have to talk to all these pitchers on staff and try to persuade them to keep them at South Carolina for the years to come. But obviously, I mean, I don't know if that's practical because guys are going to want new opportunities and stuff. How do you kind of handle everything that goes on in the college landscape with guys potentially entering the transfer portal and all that sort of stuff?
Well, you got to embrace it, first of all. I mean, number one, you got to embrace it. You know, the college baseball. You know, I think at the bare essentials, nothing has changed as far as what it takes to be successful, right? What it takes to run a program, what it takes to run a team, how you treat kids, all of that. And when kids know this is a collective effort just to make you great. If they truly believe that, then it's all going to work out. You mean that it's not going to everything's going to be okay. But in balancing it all, again, I really just believe it kind of comes back to those relationships, you know, and kids understanding that and understanding that you have, you know, their best interest at heart. So I think that's number one. I don't really get concerned with kids leaving. I don't get concerned with those things. I focus on the kids we have in the program. We're going to give it all we got every single day with them, be extremely upbeat, extremely energetic, extremely positive. Like I can't promise much. I can promise you I have a lot of caffeine in me, all right, the entire day, and they're going to get everything I got. I can promise that. So I don't get real. I try not to focus on the negatives of the what ifs of if somebody will leave or somebody won't. We're going to give it all we got every single day to those guys in the South Carolina program. And you know, I will tell you this, just in a kind of a bigger picture in college baseball, it is interesting, you know, because a lot of this is recruiting is almost year to year now. When you look at it, I mean, there's so much when you talk about the draft, you know, when you talk about the portal, when you talk about just a lot of different variables, you know, and the new NCAA rules, you know, you can't contact freshmen or sophomores anymore. So you're really dealing with a whole different element. And so I really think it's made recruiting a little bit more kind of concentrated on a yearly basis than, you know, I used to have depth charts, you know, all the way 6, 7 years out, you know, when you were able to do that under rules and commit younger kids, you know, so you can't do those things anymore. So I think that's is a challenge and a different in the landscape.
How do you kind of deal with the expectations that come with this program? Obviously, you come from a place like LSU where winning is the standard, but at South Carolina, obviously, everyone kind of wants to see the Gamecocks get back to Omaha. So, in your opinion, how do you personally go about dealing with the expectations that surround the program?
I wouldn't want it any other way. And I love it. And you better love it. You know, I tell you this, and I've said this before, and here's how I view it recruiting, right? Recruiting, you better look at recruiting like it's Friday night in the SEC. That's how you better look at it, man. You know, everybody knows what Friday night, right, is like in the SEC. You got two guys on the mound getting after each other, big crowds, intense. That intensity to win that game, you better wake up every day and feel the same thing recruiting wise, because if you don't, you're about to get beat. And that's how I look at it. I know how that's the rest of the staff looks at it. So when you same thing on the game, obviously, the game takes care of itself, but you have to embrace it, you know. And to be honest with you, I don't think it's for everybody, you know, and that's okay. You know, a lot of people may not, you know, want to think recruiting 24 hours a day. They may not want to, you know, pour their efforts so much into the kids that knowing that it's all about them. There's a lot of different variables, but you better embrace it, you know. And if you embrace the fact that, listen, it does take a lot to get to Omaha. You know, there are different things, you know, you got to get some breaks. There's a lot of different things. You have to be playing well at the right time, so to speak. But the goal is to not only to get to Omaha, the goal is to win another national championship like Coach Tanner did. And if you embrace that and that is the standard, and Coach Maneri said that, and that is the standard, then you're going to push every single day. You know, I kind of call it the forest through the trees. You know, if you can see on those hard days, if you can see the forest through the trees as a player, then you're going to get there. And obviously, as a team, forest through the trees is getting to Omaha every single day, working hard to do it.
I got one more question for you here, and I was saving this one for the end. When you were at Old Dominion, I noticed you recruited and signed Justin Verlander. If you could, just what's the story behind how that kind of happened, and what's it been like to see him, develop into a future Hall of Famer?
Okay, well, I'll tell you, it is a great story, actually. So I'm going to give you the condensed version of this. I actually was contacted about a month ago. I've done a story on this 2 or 3 times, but about a month ago, the beat writer for the Houston Astros called me, and they were doing somehow they came up and they wanted to do a whole story on this. So I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. But anyways, first of all, let me tell you this: I had no idea Justin Verlander was going to be the Justin Verlander he is. Okay, so in recruiting, when people tell you they knew this guy was going to be that 10 years down the road, they're lying. Nobody knows, you know. But I did think he was going to be special for us. I was at Old Dominion. We had just come off a really good year. I think we were number 2 seed in an NCAA regional. And long story short, I identified Justin at an early age. Back then, when he was in high school, you didn't recruit juniors. It was all seniors. You didn't even talk to kids until like after their junior year, going into their senior year. So long story short, I saw Justin pitch in the fall of his junior year at a tournament. They always throw the younger kids, at the end of the weekend on Sunday afternoons because nobody's really recruiting them. Well, it was at Old Dominion, and I was there, and I saw him. I see this big 6'3" guy jogging in, and I was like, wow, this kid's pretty. It was 86, 88, 89 miles an hour, which is decent back then. So all he did is circle his name and send him a questionnaire, right? That was it. Well, about 2 weeks later, I see him again. At University of Richmond pitching. And I go there and I'm like, geez, this is that Verlander kid again. Same thing. Is like 87, 88, 89. Good thing, but don't do anything about it. Long story short, that spring, all of the games I was going to see that day were rained out, like in the Tidewater area, Southern Maryland, New Jersey. And I'm thinking, okay, wait a minute. I can't see any of these seniors, some guys. What about that Verlander guy? So I find out it's not raining, and he lives outside of Richmond, right outside of Richmond. I realize he's not, he's pitching. Everywhere else is rained out. I said, okay, let's do it. So long story short, I call the coach. I go to see the coach. He says we're playing. I go to see him pitch. This is his junior year, and he looked pretty good. He's up to 90 that day. Anyways, long story short, I get a hold of the kid. He comes down. He visits. He kind of hung in there. Summer comes, takes a visit. I'm like, man, the only way I ever get Justin Verlander to come to campus is if we get him committed early. And there was a big, huge game. It's called the Commonwealth Games. They had in Virginia. It's like an all-star game. And that's where you first find out of everybody. And I said, man, I better get this kid committed right around that time or else it's not going to happen. Story short, Justin committed to us that summer and obviously ended up being great. Shows you the type of guy he is, shows you the type of family he is, stayed with his commitment. He certainly, after going to the fall into his senior year, could have gone to a lot of different places. There wasn't as much decommitting back then as there is now in sports. Stayed with it, stayed with his commitment to Old Dominion and threw well. This is kind of the twist in it. And Justin will tell us this story a lot. In his senior year, all the scouts, because now he's a guy, he's still a little bit harder, 90, 92, 6'3", 6'4". A lot of the scouts came to see him pitch, and he was sick. He wasn't feeling good. I think he had strep throat, so the velocity was down for a few outings. Didn't even get drafted out of high school. Goes to Old Dominion, and he's healthy, and he's feeling good. Here we go. Here comes the velocity. Here comes the stuff. He's back, and the rest is history. So it was it was a lot of luck, to be honest. But it was luck. But I will say that we identified him early. I will say that, and I knew at that time at Old Dominion, our only shot at getting this dude, was to get him early. And he did, and he stuck with it. So I never knew he was going to be what he is, but I know he's, what you see is what you get with him. And even when he was in high school, it's the same. Tremendous family, tremendous guy, and deserves all his success.
Man, that is an awesome story. I'm sure you definitely deserve some sort of inclusion in that Hall of Fame speech when he eventually gets
I don't know about that. I don't know. I'm not
But
I take any credit for that. Like I said, I had no idea he was going to be that good. I'll take credit in him going to Old Dominion, but the rest is his whole hard work and putting it together. But that's great in recruiting? That's what it's all about. These kind of stories.
Definitely. Well, Terry, I really appreciate your time, man. Thank you again for doing this, and welcome to Columbia. And thank you guys for all tuning in. And that's going to do it for us for now. Have a good rest of your day.